Welcome to the week before Christmas, the Sunday before Christmas, the fourth Sunday of Advent, or as I like to refer to it as Judgment Day. Because that's what today really is in a lot of ways, isn't it? As I was walking around this morning talking to people, I heard a lot of people talking about Christmas, but I didn't hear a lot of talk about, oh, this has been wonderful, or I saw some great lights. What it was, these are all the things I haven't gotten done yet. These are all the ways I'm judging myself for not having completed all the tasks necessary to have a good Christmas. Sorry, I was so busy about the candles, I forgot to grab my notes. And it's my belief that the biggest problem today that interferes with us having a positive experience of Christmas is not commercialism. Really, it's not. The biggest problem for us in terms of enjoying Christmas is perfectionism. That's the challenge. And Christmas, it really is a holiday season that's one of the most emotionally charged, I think, of any other time of the year. I think we feel more emotions in these weeks before Christmas than we do, say, in March or February or September or any other time. It's a very important time culturally for us. But it's also a time that really seems designed to drive us crazy. It really is an exercise in crazy making. We get very, very busy. Our social calendar immediately fills up. We often stop making time for spiritual practice, exercise. We end up having to do a lot of extra things, and then, by the way, we decide to bake cookies. And it's never just any cookies. No, it's Christmas. So you got to make those cookies that your great aunt used to make where she churns her own butter and then makes her own buttermilk. Oh, and by the way, have fun at the mall and go shopping and find the perfect gift. Anyone looking for the perfect gift? When a good gift would probably be good? It's a time when we interact with a lot of people. We interact with a lot of people we love deeply. And we interact with a lot of people maybe we don't love so much. And this next section, I don't mean this to be funny. First service I got to laugh, and I really want to make this clear. It's not meant to be. It's also a time of year when I think many of us drink more than we normally do. When we eat more sugar than we normally do. So we're basically creating this sort of emotional stew of challenge, right? We get busier, we're not resting as much, we're not sleeping as much, we're worried, we're this, we're that. And then we add in another piece that I find absolutely amazing, and I hadn't thought about it till this year. Christmas is the only time of year when we are all told culturally how we're supposed to feel. It's Christmas time. How are we supposed to feel? That's right. It's a smiley, fun time of year. It's the happiest time of year. How many of you will have at least one experience where it is not the happiest time of year? But there's that sense that we're supposed to, right? Have you ever had a moment like that and somehow felt like you were betraying Christmas? Or betraying yourself? Or what was wrong with you? We had a beautiful service here last week with the Elizabeth Hospice. They did a candle service, and it's a memorial for people who have lost loved ones. And that's one other thing about the holiday season here that really is true. If you miss somebody, you probably miss them at Christmas time or Hanukkah or whatever celebrations you're doing. This is a time of year when that stuff comes up. And I had a very strange thought as I was sitting there doing sound for this event, as I looked down and I saw people processing up, sometimes their voices cracking as they said the name of their loved one. And I realized this may be the only place in San Diego where you can be in public and be sad during Christmas time. How many of you have isolated yourself on a day or evening at Christmas because you would have liked to have gone to the event, but you were afraid you'd be too sad for the party? How many of you have been sad at a party and everyone's job became making you happy? Because getting that extra vodka gimlet is going to make a difference about being sad your mom is gone. This is a challenging time of year. It's a time of year right now where I am seeing flame wars among my friends on Facebook about whether or not people should wish each other Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays. A season where we're talking about peace on earth, goodwill towards all. And the biggest argument is whether or not we say Merry Christmas to each other or Happy Holidays. This truly is a holiday that can create a lot of stress, a lot of pressure, and a lot of that stems really from this idea of perfection. And I would ask, where does that pressure come from, by the way? Is it the outside world that's telling us we have to be perfect? Maybe a little bit, but where is it really coming from? It's from us. We know we need to create the perfect Christmas. I've had a very strange experience. For the first time in my life, I'm very aware of the Christmas countdown in my children's lives. That there's only one Christmas at 2.5, one at 3.5, one at 4.5. And it gets very easy at that point to get wrapped up in what? Have to make it perfect. I'm sure some of you may be at a place where you're starting to count Christmases in terms of, I'm not sure if I have 30 left or 20. Got to make the most of it. This has to be a perfect Christmas. After all, it's a limited commodity. And yet that's usually what distracts us from the beauty of Christmas, right? That's what distracts us from being able to really connect with people. Has anybody here ever been to a holiday event where the ham was dry and it wasn't perfect and that pretty much ruined the entire day? Anybody? Yeah. Was it the people eating the ham that had the problem or the person that cooked the ham? Usually it's the person that cooked the ham. The people eating it are all trying to tell them, it's fine, it's good, please stop, get off the ledge, come back inside, it's not that bad. Now you laugh at that, but you laugh, I think, because it's true. Because we've seen people completely lose it because they didn't create the perfect cookie, the perfect ham. Find the perfect gift. My wife and I used to be with a group of people, and we had a wonderful time. It was that post-college friend group, and we all gave presents to each other. And Terry and I were so dedicated to this that we started bringing unnamed presents if strangers showed up, because we were so wrapped up in making it perfect. This is the challenge, I really think, for our generation. And by our generation, I mean everybody currently alive. I watched the Charlie Brown Christmas special with my kids, and 3 things really stood out as I watched it, because I haven't seen it for probably 10 years. One, the scene where Linus does the monologue about the Christian meaning of Christmas is still beautiful. 2, they really treat each other terribly in that show and say horrible things to each other. I may never let my kids see it again. And the third thing that struck me, because they had a big special, this is the 50th year of Charlie Brown Christmas, 50th year. And one of the main plots was that Christmas was too commercial. 50 years ago, people were worried about it. And you know what I've come to realize? In some ways, the worry about Christmas being too commercial is really about what? Christmas having to be perfect. Somehow, too many lights make it not perfect. Somehow, this makes it not perfect. Rather than really moving into a space where what we're doing is celebrating with love and joy and peace within ourselves. If we're disquieted, if we're so sure that we haven't achieved what we need to achieve, if we haven't done what we need to do, sent out the cards we need to send, are we truly going to be able to be there to spread cheer and warmth to others? Or are we going to be busy judging ourselves, not being enough? Anyone here remember the first year they didn't send out as many Christmas cards? It was either liberating or painful or both. But it still had a meaning, didn't it? There's something about this time of year. And that's why working these principles, looking at letting go of perfection, is so powerful at Christmas time. It's like running with weights. Because if you can let go of Christmas perfection, August perfection is really not that bad. March perfection you can handle. New Year's perfection, that's a whole different deal, but we'll get to that. But are we willing to let go of perfection? Because that is today's challenge. The need for a perfect Christmas. I'm sure many of you are familiar with How the Grinch Stole Christmas, Theodore Geisel's wonderful book about the little green monster guy that steals Christmas away from Whoville. And then at the end, Whoville all gets together and sing a song that makes absolutely no sense and has no words, but somehow conveys a real sense of love and calm. Now, I realize this is not what Theodore was writing about. I realize that. I respect. He really was, I think, talking about commercialism. But in watching it again and thinking about this talk, what I realized is what he stole from Whoville, what he really stole was their perfection. He stole from them their perfect Christmas. It's very hard to worry about whether the roast beast is at the correct temperature when there is none. For those of you that remember the animation, the Christmas tree, when he gives it back at the end, does not look near as good as when it was up the first time. And in a way, that's the gift that the Grinch gave to those people. He took away their perfection. He took away even the opportunity for them to be perfect. And in doing so, they were able to do what? Stand around and sing. How many of you have spent Christmases either being the one or seeing the one you love so worried about perfect potatoes that you don't see them? And how many of you would be willing to trade away perfect potatoes for 20 more minutes with your mom or your dad, your aunt, your uncle, your niece, your nephew, whoever it is? How many of you would be willing to trade away and settle for just good potatoes and have more time with the people you love? And the challenge with this is it's very easy to say, right? We sit here, we talk about it, it's very easy to say, and we want to tell others this. We want them to know the potatoes are good enough. However, my Jell-O mold must be perfect, right? And that's the insidious thing, I think, about perfection. There are two things that are really insidious. One, it sounds like such a worthwhile goal, doesn't it? I want to make things perfect, so I'm going to destroy the rest of my life for the next month to create this perfection. And it's worth it. Is it? Is it really a good goal? One of the quotes I read at first service that I really liked said something to the effect that striving for excellence motivates us. Striving for perfection demoralizes us. And the other thing about perfection and why it's a trap, particularly this time of year, and particularly for those of us that are loving and caring and giving, because we're not being perfect or making perfect for ourselves, are we? Oh no, we want to be perfect for them. I want to make sure my kids have the best 2.5-year-old perfect Christmas possible. But when it comes down to it, who am I doing that for? Am I really doing it for them? Are they even going to notice all the things that I did to make it perfect? Or do they want time with their dad? Or maybe they want their dad not grumpy. How many of you would say that instead of the happiest time of year, that Christmas may be the grumpiest time of year for you personally? Anybody? No, Phil, just you. Okay. And are you usually getting grumpy because you're trying to make things okay? Or trying to just make things good? Or does the grumpiness really hit because you want it to be perfect? Everything has to be perfect. And this goes a lot deeper than Christmas. Sorry, the Sudafed is completely drying me out here. By the way, be very careful when you tell the universe you want to do a talk on perfection when you're about to speak, because a cold suddenly seems to make sense in that time frame. The reason it's so important to look at this at Christmas time is because it is a powerful time of year. It's a time when we can make change. It's a time we're aware of. Because all these things that I'm talking about, all this need for perfection, all this need to do and be, really is there the rest of the year too, isn't it? We really do live Christmas all year. We need to be perfect every day. We just don't notice it as much. My son has started watching something called Thomas the Tank Engine. Those of you that wish to judge the fact that I let my kids watch TV, please feel free. You're welcome to. I'm used to it. It's a little engine, it's a train, and all the rest of the characters in the show for the most part are trains, and they all talk, and they really don't do anything interesting except drive around and sing. Anyone else who sees this agree? But I became worried because one of the reoccurring themes, and those of you that have watched it with kids will know this phrase, because every engine on the island, their primary goal is to be really useful. They need to be a really useful engine. And you know what the worst thing they could be accused of is? Again and again, this theme comes up, this phrase, I noticed it. They cause confusion and delay. That's what happens when they're bad. They cause confusion and delay. And I was worried about this for a little bit because I thought, wow, I don't want my son to get into this mentality that his entire life is about being a really useful cog in the machine. And then I realized this show was simply putting into words exactly what our culture teaches us every day. How many of us know that we need to go to work and be really useful? And then we need to go home and be really useful. Anybody here doing dream work so even your sleep has meaning and is really useful? Our prayers need to be really useful. Anyone here meditate with that sense of needing to be really useful to do something? We live our lives being really useful. And how many of us really are terrified of causing ourselves or others confusion and delay? So I still let my son watch it. I figure we'll just work on that. At least we've got the words now to pull it to the surface. Christmas is a powerful time of year. And it's a time when I think we're very self-aware. I think we're taught from a very early age, and I really believe the things that we're taught when we're young carry through. And we have to remember that you better not pout, you better not cry, because Santa Claus is coming to town. He sees you when you're sleeping, he knows when you're awake. And you can make all the jokes you want about him being a stalker, et cetera, et cetera. It's funny for adults. But the truth is, what does this song say? Does it say, hey kids, be kids? Christmas is an exciting time of year. You're probably going to be a little squirrelier than normal. Or is it saying just the opposite? Because if you're not a perfect little boy or girl, what might happen? You're not going to get presents. You're going to get coal. If a kid causes confusion and delay and they're not being really useful. Any here familiar with this elf on a shelf thing? Elf on a shelf is, in many ways, it's a very cute idea. And I'm not saying these things are terrible for kids. I'm not. But there's something beneath it I think we need to look at. Elf on a Shelf is a little cloth elf doll that you put someplace. And the idea is this elf moves around the house. And the kids are not allowed to touch it, because if the kids touch it, the magic will go away. And the idea is it's fun. The parents can put it here and then over here, and you never know where you're going to find Elf on a Shelf. And that sounds cool, right? Kind of fun, kind of whimsical. Except here's the other part of it. Do you know why that elf is in your home? He's watching the kids. He's reporting back to Santa whether they're good or not. That's the mythos around Elf on a Shelf. Might as well call it Rat on a Rung. I mean, that's this whole... And I know this is something that, again, it wasn't there when I was a kid. Many of you are around my age, maybe a little bit beyond. But did you know you had to be really good at Christmas? Did you feel you had to be perfect little boy or little girl at Christmas? Is it that surprising that here, 50 years after the Peanuts Christmas special taught us that commercialism may be a problem, that we're still feeling like we're not enough at Christmas? Or we have to be perfect? Although we better not cause confusion and delay? We better be really useful? So here's the question I just want to ask. And I don't need any response because this is a very personal thing. Are you willing to give up perfection? Are you willing to give up the dream of perfection and replace it with the dream of good enough? Excellence is still wonderful. We can still strive towards excellence. But do you see the difference between getting an excellent gift and the perfect gift? The idea of an excellent gift could be one of 1,000 different things that'll make that person happy. But if I say perfect gift, what am I saying really? There can be only one, and it shall be mine. Are you willing to give up perfection? And there's a couple things that I want to invite you to do along with that are part of it. One, there's a very important word. I know there's a big argument about whether to say Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays. I get that. But I think the really important issue for you at Christmas time is, do you say yes or do you say no? Because that is going to make a big difference in your experience. Are you willing and able to say no to something that doesn't serve? Are you willing to look at your calendar and say, wow, I'm not getting enough sleep, I can't take part in that activity. I need to say no. And how many of you find that Christmas time is a time of year you have a tougher time saying no than any other? There's something about, and that's what makes this wonderful. It is a magical time of year, and I'm not just saying that because it's so charged, it's so powerful, there's so much here. If you say no during Christmas time, you're really telling yourself what? I have the right to say no. The other thing I really would invite you to do is realize that just because that's the way it's always been done isn't the way it has to be done. Tradition is a wonderful thing, and it can be a choice. Anybody here drive themselves crazy for tradition? Anyone still serving foods on their Christmas table that no one likes? No one even eats, they take a little bit because they feel guilty? Okay, listen to the number of people laughing. They wouldn't laugh if they hadn't had an experience that was similar. Are you willing to let go of traditions that no longer serve? It's an amazing time of year. I can't imagine almost any other time of year when the phrase, "that's how we've always done it," would have that much meaning. If every 4th of July people served something that no one liked, that would end after what, about a year? But for Christmas. And again, I'm not saying tradition is bad. I'm not saying yes is bad. It comes down to this. Are you willing to make it a choice? Are you willing to choose your experience of the holidays? And I really believe in my heart it starts with letting go of any concept of a perfect holiday or a perfect Christmas and just having a good Christmas. As we enter into the final days towards Christmas, which sounds a lot like it's a race, doesn't it? Anyone else get the feeling that Christmas is looming before us? The happiest day of the year, the holiday that's supposed to make us smile. And what is the word that really does come to my mind and many others? Loom. Like some kind of cartoon vulture. Are you willing to let go of that? Are you willing to let go? Because again, where does that experience happen? Is it really outside of us? Those of you that did that major thing that probably broke your heart and stopped sending Christmas cards, was it a disaster? Did the world end? How many of you really thought it might? And I don't mean that seriously. I mean really thought it would be a much bigger disaster than it was. There comes a time when the real important meaning of Christmas is choice. What traditions do you keep this year? What traditions do you let go of? Are you willing to choose to allow yourself to be sad when you're sad? To allow yourself to be joyous when you're joyous? Are you willing to choose to nurture yourself and take care of yourself and make sure you're getting enough sleep? Make sure you're exercising if that's what balances you. Make sure you're meditating. Saying no to events because you want to make sure you have an evening at home with someone you love. Are you willing to make those commitments? And how many of you can already feel me creating a whole new world of perfect for you? Anybody get that feeling inside as I talk about these things? Anyone here ever get angry with themselves because you try to get past your perfectionism in the past and you didn't do it perfectly? And that does happen, yeah. When I originally wrote this talk, I had this whole little thing and I realized, wait a minute, I'm talking about giving him perfectionism, then I'm giving him something to do, which most of them will try to do. Yeah. All right, so let's move on. It really comes down to this. I really hope that you have a happy holiday. But more than that, what I wish you is a Merry Monday, and a Merry Tuesday, and a Merry Wednesday, and a Merry Thursday, and a Merry Friday, and a Merry Saturday, all the way until Sunday. I wish you a wonderful week of knowing how wonderful you are. I wish you a wonderful week of knowing that you already are whole, perfect, and complete. That's the celebration of Christmas from the unity standpoint. That deepening of our awareness that we are one with the divine, the Christ consciousness within us. And no, this is not going to turn into one of those, oh, it's so commercialized, we need to talk spiritual. I'm not. But that's the path to let go of perfection. It's knowing we already are. We're never going to be more one with God than we are in every moment. No one else is ever more one with God than we are. And by the way, we're never more one with God than anybody else. We're already perfect. We can still strive towards excellence. We can still strive to make great cookies. And if we want to make our own buttermilk, great. But are you willing to let go of that need, that unconscious drive to be perfect? Because the more we try to prove we are perfect, the more we are disproving the truth. And the truth is we already are. So this year for Christmas, I invite you to give yourself the knowledge that you are already whole, perfect, and complete. Namaste.